Julius Randle looked like a complete misfit in Minnesota. Fans were questioning the trade. His efficiency was down, and the Wolves were struggling at 27-21. Then, something changed. When Randle came in, I think there was a perception that he was going to be a big bruiser in the interior, who could be replacing Towns on the offensive side of the floor. A secondary scorer that could create a dominant two-man game alongside Ant Edwards. However, the relationship between Randle and the Wolves didn't turn out quite how fans expected, and there were most certainly growing pains along the way. Over time, the Wolves realized that Randle isn't that guy. While Randle is one of the most physically imposing players in the league, he's uniquely more guard-like than your typical big.
Gobert couldn't control the board. Randle splits the defense down the lane.
Let me explain. From the beginning of the season until the end of January, Randle posted a stat line of about 19 points, 7 boards, and 4.5 assists per game. His usage and his efficiency was down from his typical numbers he posted with the Knicks. He was shooting about 47% from the field and 32% from three, and the Wolves were struggling to regain their identity that they had formed during their conference final run during the previous season. The Wolves earned notoriety as probably the biggest and most physically imposing defensive team in the NBA under coach Chris Finch. Trading Towns for Randle was a bet on doubling down on their strengths by trading away a guy who was considered soft and skilled for his position in exchange for a player known as more of a bruiser. It wasn't working out, as Minnesota had a record of 27-21 before Randle got injured at the end of January. When he came back at the beginning of March, he was utilized in one role and found his groove, a role we can expect him to develop in the upcoming season. After Randle returned, the Wolves went on an epic run, finishing the year 17-4, the third best record in the league during that time, trailing only the Thunder and the Celtics. Randle's stats don't jump off the page as significantly better. His scoring and rebound totals slightly dropped, but his shooting efficiencies and assists were both improved dramatically as Finch utilized him as more of a perimeter player in lineups than a traditional power forward or center.
Shooting sub 29% from the floor. Randle, yes!
In some cases, when Gobert was off the floor, they used him in 5-out lineups, taking advantage of his excellent ball handling skills from further away from the bucket. When Randle has the chance to face up against centers, he's one of the best in the game. He undoubtedly is one of the quickest players in the league right now when you consider his size. As we know, the Wolves ended up losing in the conference finals again, but Randle was at his best in the playoffs and earned a big-time 3-year extension in Minnesota, where he will be expected to pick up where he left off. On offense, Randle didn't post up nearly as frequently as traditional bigs. He was extremely efficient, scoring over 55% of the time, ranking 4th in the NBA amongst all players that scored at least 2 points per game in the post. But Randle often wasn't defended by opponent centers, with Gobert and Reed drawing those matchups more frequently as the season went on. Instead, Randle frequently took advantage of wing players that couldn't match him physically. This chart here shows Randle's finishing rate throughout his career from within 3 feet of the rim. Now, as you can see, Randle has consistently become a more reliable rim finisher as his career progressed and posted a career high in this stat this season playing for Minnesota. As a roll man in pick and rolls, Randle was decent, as you could expect from one of the most gifted interior scorers in the league, ranking in the 51st percentile. However, it might surprise you that Randle was actually far more effective as a pick and roll ball handler in limited opportunities. Though he only operated as a pick and roll handler in 1.5 possessions per game last year, he ranked in the 85th percentile in terms of scoring efficiency. And he's a great passer when driving to the basket as well. While Randle's field goal percentage was slightly below 50% on drives this past year, he passed the ball on 40% of his drives. That passing percentage was actually higher than Anthony Edwards, the Wolves' lead guard, and ranked 3rd in the league in all non-guard players, trailing only Jimmy Butler and Deni Avdija. There's more evidence that Julius Randle needs to be more of an interior on offense than an off-ball threat. Though he was more active in possessions away from the ball, which contributed to the Wolves' success, it definitely isn't his bread and butter. This chart here shows Randle's field goal percentage according to how many times he dribbled the ball before shooting. While most players in the league become less efficient with more dribbles, allowing defenders to key in, Randle is an exception to the rule, scoring most efficiently after dribbling 3 to 6 times. This chart correlates with the last one. It shows Randle's field goal percentage according to how long he had possession of the ball before shooting. Once again, Randle uniquely had a higher field goal percentage in possessions where he had the ball for over 6 seconds before shooting, contrasting the norms of most NBA players. Julius Randle has struggled with consistency in catch-and-shoot situations throughout his career. His improved three-point shooting down the stretch was critical to the success of the Wolves, and he must continue to improve in this area if the team has championship aspirations. However, Randle had a higher field goal percentage when pulling up than he did on catch-and-shoots, a shot that is more difficult for the majority of NBA players, especially bigs. Randle isn't just better suited to more of an off-guard or wing role on the offensive side of the floor. He's actually much better at defending the perimeter than the interior as well, contrary to what you would anticipate from a player his size. Amongst regulars in the Wolves' rotation last season, Randle was their worst defender in the paint and in the restricted zone. But he's not a bad defender. Actually, Randle was the team's best defender at guarding the mid-range and very reliable when guarding three-pointers as well, particularly above the break. Randle's progression was probably the biggest bright spot this past year for Minnesota, and I would love to see him get even more opportunities as a primary facilitator for them next year. As the league continues to look for matchups they can expose, Randle, as such a physically imposing weapon capable of playing in the backcourt, is a total matchup buster for the Wolves. Mike Conley is aging, and I think it's inevitable that his role will continue to decline. A lot of fans are eager to see Rob Dillingham step right into those minutes, but I think that the Wolves will look to Randle to fill that void. DiVincenzo is much better than him as an off-ball shooter, and the gravity that Randle demands can open up so much for all the other players on the team. No doubt he needs to continue to improve and remain active as an off-ball threat, playing alongside Edwards. But maybe giving him 2 or 3 more possessions per game handling the rock could even open things up for Ant. I'd love to hear what you guys think, especially Wolves fans, if you guys are watching this. Thanks for checking us out. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to Sports Insight.